Welcome. Thank you for joining us. My name is Ray Rivera. I'm the Certification Director with FIDO Alliance, and today we'll go over the value of the FIDO certification programs. Within our agenda, we'll kind of go over our idea of what the value for certifying your products are from FIDO's perspective, go through our certification programs, and then the new programs that we have on the horizon. So let's start with the value of product certification. There are 4 of them that we've kind of identified that we feel are most important as a vendor if you're going to certify your product and what it means. So it's standardization for the industry, looking at becoming a market differentiator, the regulatory requirements, and then the consumer protection. So FIDO's perspective on this is that when you're looking at the standardization for industry, you're looking for like compliance and best practices that you want to show for your product that you're developing. And with that, through the standards that we've developed in cooperation with the certification processes that we've identified, you can prove that your product is conformant to the specifications. You can show that they are compliant for the standardization of the industry and that they interoperate on a global scale. So from FIDO's perspective, this is why it's important to standardize using certification. As a market differentiator, a vendor developing a product to be implemented in the marketplace, you're going to stand out against your competition. The certification program is very rigorous, and you'll be able to show that through product development and meeting the requirements for the certification programs that you have developed a very rigorous product. And lastly, kind of gives you a competitive edge in the marketplace as a standout, the first to achieve and the first to make things happen in this market space. Next, we look at the regulatory requirements. So more and more, we're seeing that governments and healthcare and finance and a lot of the primary verticals and technology are implementing, they usually implement certified products. And the reason is because of some of the things that we stated before from the standardization, but it also becomes what we call an industry requirement. So when you, your product, your specifications, your certification program escalates in the marketplace, others notice and they start making it a requirement to meet compliance. And that's the other one. And then it's validated within the marketplace. So you can say that we utilize whatever product in the marketplace, whatever product you're certifying. Here, this case, FIDO compliance products, whether it's a server, an authenticator, biometric, or some of our future programs, that is validated through common marketplace requirements. And then lastly, because we've increased our deployments of FIDO, more and more getting an understanding of what FIDO is, what it means to the market. And we look at our consumer protection. So they have confidence in the product quality. If it's a certified product, you know that it meets certain requirements. Security and trust, our Authenticator program has a very robust security and privacy requirements that have to be achieved for each product. And then it allows the consumer to make informed purchases. So using all 4 of these, this is where obviously there are other reasons to certify products, but these are the primary reasons that FIDO Alliance sees it's important for vendors to go through and trust and validate their product through the certification program. So what are those programs? So we have 3 current programs right now: our functional certification, our Authenticator certification, and then the Biometric certification program. So what is functional certification? The basic core of a functional certification program is some conformance test validation. It's a suite of tests that have been developed to show that your product meets the specifications, that if you go through the spec and that you develop your product, that it meets every single requirement. And if you implement additional options, that it also meets the compliance for the implementation of those options. The second piece to the functional certification program is interoperability. So we make sure that we validate those products that have already proven conformance against the test tool suite, that they also interoperate with each other, because you want to have a product out there that if someone goes to use it, it's not working as it's intended to work. So we do also have the interoperability piece. So if you're interested in that, we do have program documents for functional certification. This is the very start of our server program, our server product certifications, and our Authenticator certifications. So you want to understand the specification. Which one is going to achieve the goals that you're looking for? Is it FIDO 2, UAF, or U2F? Then we also have common specs, and the common specs are common to all like FIDO 2 or UAF and U2F. So it's kind of an implementation that you have to not only look at the individual specification, but also some of the requirements on the common spec documents. And then lastly, the governance document, which is our policy document for the functional certification. Our Authenticator certification is kind of like a two-step process in order to achieve the Authenticator certification. First, you have to go through functional, which we just discussed. So you have to do the conformance testing and interoperability. Plus, you have an additional security evaluation. And that security evaluation is a vendor questionnaire that gets completed and then is evaluated. All of that ends up as an authenticator that's certified. So let's talk about that security evaluation. We have the vendor questionnaire, as I mentioned. You complete and you test, or you provide rationale or sometimes documentation, depending on the level, which we'll go over those in a minute. Then there's test procedures. So whether you have your product evaluated with our security secretariat, or you have your product evaluated through one of our accredited labs, they will apply certain test procedures to all the answers in the vendor questionnaire. Okay. At the end of that process, it's either approved or additional clarification is needed or failed. Unfortunately, that does happen sometimes, but provide information to the vendor on how they can come back and achieve that success. Next are our Authenticator security levels. So there are 3 base levels, and at each level there is considered a plus. So level 1 plus, level 2 plus, which is in progress, and a level 3 plus, which exists. So level 1 is just basic implementation of the Authenticator, the protocols themselves and the security requirements. Level 1 plus is a little additional features that require software evaluation if you're using white box crypto and things like that. At level 2, it gets a little bit more complicated, and that's where we add a requirement. And that requirement is that you have to implement an allowed restricted operating environment. So your entire FIDO targeted evaluation needs to be in what we call an AROE, and that list is provided on the website. This is something like a TEE or a TPM or a secure element. And then level 2 plus is additional assurances that need to be added. When we get to level 3, we start looking at all the hardware requirements. So that's like the threat vectors are based more on the hardware versus the software. While that's all included within the level 3 plus evaluations, that's where we start looking at those. Okay. And also one thing to mention at the level 3 plus, we do require what we call a companion program. And that just makes it a little bit easier for the evaluation to occur on that product, meaning that one of the programs is common criteria. So if you have a secure element that is common criteria certified, then it's going to be a little bit easier to come to FIDO because we've mapped all the requirements. So the program documents for our Authenticator program includes the functional documents. However, we do have our Authenticator Certification Policy, which is the governance document. We also have the security and privacy requirements that you have to achieve in order to receive this, the vendor questionnaire worksheet, the list of the allowed restricted operating environments for this program, the list of allowed cryptography that is required as well, and then all of our metadata requirements. And those are all the program documents. So the next certification program that exists within the FIDO Alliance is our Biometric component certification. And this is where we look at certifying the biometric component. And it is independent from our Authenticator certification. However, there's a caveat, and I will share that with you. So the biometric component certification looks at false accept rate, false reject rate. We do presentation attack detection testing. And then there's also a component that is defined within the program policy itself and the requirements document on how to do a self-attestation. If you are using a certified, or the program is independent from the Authenticator certification program, as I stated. However, when you get to the higher levels, level 3 and 3+, the requirement is if you use a biometric in your authenticator, then it has to be FIDO biometric component certified in order to be implemented into that authenticator and certified as a FIDO authenticator. Okay, so if you're implementing level 1 and 2 biometrics in your authenticator, it is optional. However, we do recommend, because there's obviously additional testing that occurs on that authenticator, but it's not required. So the program documents, pretty much the same. We have the certification program policy, and that's the governance document. We have the requirements, and then we have what we call an allowed integration document. And it defines exactly how that authenticator gets, or how the biometric component gets integrated into that authenticator. So whether it's the phone, looking at glass thickness, lighting, and things like that, all have to be defined and shared with the lab. So we do have a template that's available to make it a little easier for a vendor wanting to go through this program to complete and fill out. And there are also additional metadata requirements. However, the requirements for the biometric program are defined within the common metadata requirements documentation. So as it relates to the Authenticator program. All right, so those are the documents for the biometric program. So now let's have a look at what's on the horizon. We got a lot of very exciting programs that are coming early next year that are just finishing up, whether it's on the policy side. I think all the operational aspects are defined, but we're finalizing the requirements or the specifications or the exam. So that'll be an interesting one to share with you. But here are the programs that we have coming up. First, we have our FIDO device onboarding certification. So we call this FDO. This is our zero-touch onboarding service. It's related to IoT devices. To more securely and automatically onboard and provision a device on edge hardware. Okay, so it only needs to be drop shipped to the point of installation, connected to the network, and powered up. So the FDO does all the rest. So we have this certification that identifies what that looks like and how we get that zero trust model to simplify the installer's role in reducing costs. It has a security component to it. So we have addressed security requirements for this program. And then it's basically looks at shipping with default passwords or authorized vouchers and things like that. So the entire specification is being written. The first version is available on the website if you're interested. So with that program, this testing is very similar to the Authenticator certification, and I'll show you how. So the first step is going to be the functional portion. Now, the FDO certification policy defines what that functional testing looks like. So this information is going to be found completely and wholly within the FDO certification policy document. It is very similar to the functional policy that's defined for the server and authenticator program, but it's not listed in that document. So we kind of made this its own separate program with its separate documents containing all the information that you need within the policy. So you'll go through functional testing. There'll be a conformance test suite that you'll test against, and then there'll be interoperability. And it'll be included in all of our interoperability events that happen throughout the year. So we look forward to being able to launch this. In addition to the functional, There is also an IoT security evaluation. So similar to Authenticator, there's going to be a vendor questionnaire. There will be labs. Well, to start, we're just launching with the first level, so it'll be done completely inside by our security secretariat, but there'll be a test evaluation process and then a result. And if you pass both the functional and the security evaluation, then you'll receive the FIDO certification from FIDO Alliance. The evaluation, here are some elements that are kind of evaluated. So we're looking at the hardware, microcontrollers, microprocessors, software that includes any embedded operating systems, firmwares, programs, and applications. We're also looking at the sensors that are used to detect or measure events in the operational environment. Actuators, output inputs, output units that execute decisions based on previously processed information. And then obviously, the security and privacy evaluation that's based on a defined threat model that our security requirements working group is going through, as well as the different security profiles that are implemented on these types of devices. So look forward to the announcement of that new program. Another new program is our document authenticity certification. The goal of this certification is just to determine whether a document is authentic. There are other aspects that are currently being worked on that will add on to this program. However, this is the first launch phase. So what does that testing look like? It's going to be very similar to our biometric testing. It'll be done in an accredited lab, and it's a combination of digital document image tests and physical document tests. The digital document image test looks at the performance levels of the false reject rate, the false accept rate, and then it's triaged on different levels or different types of fraud attacks. And we've defined them as level A, B, or C. The physical document test looks at the genuine document authentication transaction that occurs, and then the genuine document verification errors that also potentially occur. All those are taken into account, evaluated, compared to the performance requirements, and then either approved or not approved. All the tests also take into the test environment that is utilized. And like I said, it's conducted at a FIDO accredited lab. All right. And finally, the last certification program is that recently at the Authenticate event that took place in Seattle in October, prior to that, there was an announcement of the FIDO Certified Professional Program. And this is a professional certification program that's developed, but includes like an exam and then continuing professional education credits. And it basically looks at your ability and to understand how to deploy multi-factor authentication, specifically FIDO standards within an organization. So as we increase our deployments, we've seen a demand for individuals with this expertise within the marketplace. And so we wanted to provide an educational professional certification that would validate to the industry that you have these skills, knowledge, skills, and abilities. So the content outline looks like this. So there are 5 core sections with details below that. But it's kind of like analyzing business documents, validating, designing, being able to deploy FIDO solutions, and then educating others. So these are the core areas in which you would have to have knowledge, skills, and abilities to pass the exam. Once you pass the exam, then there is a formal certificate. We have an e-badge that you can share on all your social media. You'll be given access to member benefits. You will have to attest to the code of conduct that was recently identified for FIDO Alliance. And then, like I said, there are CPE requirements that you'll have to adhere to on a yearly and a tri-year and event to prove that you are continuing to educate yourself within this industry and gaining additional skills. So with that, look forward to the formal announcement early next year when our exam should go live globally through Pearson VUE centers. and as well as our FDO and our document authenticity certification program. And with that, I thank you very much for your time and appreciate you sharing your time with me today.